The power has been out for 6 days. Your propane ran out on day 3. You've been eating cold food from cans and pretending it's fine, but it's not fine, and everyone around you knows it. You have wood, fallen branches, broken furniture, scrap lumber from the garage, but every time you build an open fire to cook on, you burn through half of it just to boil a pot of water, the smoke goes everywhere, and the heat disperses in every direction except into your food. You're wasting fuel you cannot replace. You're generating smoke that announces your position, and you're getting almost none of the thermal energy your fire is actually producing into the food that's supposed to keep you alive. There is a better way. There has been a better way for decades, and the people who designed it weren't preppers or survivalists. They were engineers working for humanitarian organizations trying to reduce indoor smoke deaths in the developing world. They created a combustion system so efficient, so elegant, and so buildable from raw materials that it has spread to every continent and every survival community on Earth. It's called a rocket stove. And once you understand how it works and why it works, you will never look at an open fire the same way again. A rocket stove burns small diameter fuel, sticks, twigs, scrap wood cut into pieces no thicker than your wrist, at extremely high temperatures in a controlled combustion chamber that forces all of the thermal energy upward through a single vertical exhaust channel directly into whatever you're cooking. The result is a stove that produces more heat from less fuel than almost any other wood-burning design, generates very little smoke when operating correctly, and can be built in an afternoon from bricks, concrete blocks, clay or rubble, with no special tools and no special skills. The physics behind it are not complicated. Open fires are thermally inefficient because heat radiates outward in all directions, and most of it never touches your cooking vessel. The combustion itself is also incomplete. Wood that burns at lower temperatures produces more smoke and more unburned particulates because the volatile gases released by the wood aren't fully igniting. A rocket stove solves both problems simultaneously. The insulated L-shaped combustion chamber concentrates heat and drives temperatures high enough to combust those volatile gases completely, which is why a properly running rocket stove produces almost no smoke. And the vertical chimney channel focuses all of that heat directly upward into a concentrated hot zone where your pot sits directly over the flame path. You are capturing heat that an open fire throws away. Before you build, understand the geometry. A rocket stove has 3 essential components: the horizontal fuel feed, where you push wood in from the side, the combustion chamber at the base of the vertical channel, where the actual burning happens, and the vertical chimney that focuses hot gases upward to the cooking surface. The L shape created by the horizontal feed meeting the vertical chimney is the defining feature of the design. Everything else is implementation detail. The internal diameter of both the horizontal feed and the vertical chimney must be consistent, the same cross-sectional area throughout. This is called the burn tunnel. And consistent diameter is what drives the airflow dynamics that make the stove work. A standard beginner build uses a 4-inch by 4-inch square cross-section or a 4-inch diameter round pipe for the burn tunnel. This is small enough to concentrate heat effectively and large enough to accommodate a useful cooking fire. You're going to build this in 3 ways today. First, from standard bricks with no mortar, a dry stack build you can assemble in under an hour. Second, from concrete blocks, which is faster and more durable. Third, from clay and rubble, which is the true zero materials build you can execute with nothing but dirt and rocks and time. Start with the dry stack brick rocket stove, because it teaches you the geometry most clearly and costs almost nothing if you have access to bricks. You need 16 standard bricks for a functional basic build. Find a flat, stable surface to build on. Non-combustible is better concrete, packed dirt, stone, not a wooden deck. Lay your first course. Place 2 bricks parallel to each other, separated by the width of 1 brick plus a small gap, roughly 4 to 5 inches between the inner faces. These are the walls of your horizontal fuel feed channel. The channel opening faces you. This is where you'll push your fuel in. At the end of those 2 parallel bricks, place 2 more bricks perpendicular, closing off the back of the feed channel and forming the base of the vertical chamber. You now have a U shape open toward you and open at the top, That's your combustion zone at the corner of the L. Now build the vertical chimney upward from that corner. Stack bricks on either side of the opening at the back of the feed channel, creating walls that rise straight up. These walls form the vertical channel. Each course of bricks adds height. You want the vertical chimney to be at minimum 8 inches tall. Taller is better, up to about 12 inches for a compact field stove, because more vertical height creates stronger draft. Draft is the engine of the rocket stove. More height means stronger pull of air through the system, means hotter, more complete combustion. As you stack, make sure the interior channel remains clear and consistent. Don't let bricks encroach on the burn tunnel. The airflow path is sacred. Obstruct it, and you lose the efficiency that makes this design work. At the top of your vertical chimney, leave a gap on one side, a small notch or simply an offset in the final course of bricks that acts as the pot support. Your cooking vessel sits directly over the chimney opening, resting on the top course of bricks, with just enough gap between the pot and the chimney rim for combustion gases to escape. If you seal the top completely with your pot, you choke the draft. The gap matters. A general rule is that the gap area around the pot should equal roughly the cross-sectional area of the burn tunnel. Approximately the same opening that lets air in must be available for gas to escape around the pot. That's the dry stack build. It will work. It looks rough. It will also fall apart if you kick it. For a more permanent installation, you mortar the bricks or you move to a different material. The concrete block version is faster and more bomb-proof. Standard 8x8x16 cm blocks, the hollow concrete blocks used in construction, can be arranged to form a rocket stove without cutting a single block. 2 blocks laid side by side with their hollow cores aligned form a feed channel. Stand 2 more blocks on end at the back to create the vertical chimney walls, using the hollow cores as the flue channel. The geometry is the same as the brick version, just at a larger scale and with material that weighs enough to stay put without mortar. The concrete block build is larger than the brick version, which means it suits a larger pot and a longer fuel feed. You can push in longer pieces of wood. It's also more thermally massive, meaning it takes longer to heat up, but holds heat longer once it does. For a semi-permanent camp stove at a fixed location, this is your build. Now the clay and rubble build, which is the one that matters most in a genuine zero-resource scenario because it requires nothing you can't find in most environments. Find your clay. Real clay soil holds together when wet and doesn't crumble when dry. If you pick up a handful of moist soil and it holds a shape without falling apart, it has enough clay content to work with. If it crumbles, find soil with higher clay content or mix in finer material. You're not looking for potter's clay, you're looking for cohesive soil. Collect your aggregate, small stones, gravel, broken brick pieces, coarse sand. You're going to mix this into your clay at roughly a 1:1 ratio. This mixture is called cob, and it's one of the oldest building materials on Earth. The clay binds everything together, the aggregate prevents cracking as it dries and adds structural strength. If you have straw or dry grass, adding it in small amounts further reduces cracking. Mix your cob with water until it's the consistency of very stiff bread dough. Cohesive, workable, not sticky, not crumbly. You'll know it's right when you can shape it with your hands, and it holds that shape. Too wet and it slumps, too dry and it cracks immediately. Now sculpt your stove. Build a solid base platform of packed cob about 4 inches thick and at least 18 inches square. Let it firm up slightly. Not dry, just firm enough to support the next layer without deforming. Build up the walls of your horizontal feed channel first, forming the L-shaped tunnel with your hands. The walls should be at least 2 inches thick. Thicker is better for insulation and structural integrity. Form the corners carefully. Keep the interior channel clear. Use small flat stones or pieces of broken brick to line the bottom of the feed channel. This gives the burning wood a surface to rest on and allows air to circulate underneath the fuel, which improves combustion. Build the vertical chimney upward from the corner of the L. Keep the walls thick. The cob build is naturally more insulating than a brick build because there are no air gaps at joints. It's a monolithic structure, which helps maintain combustion chamber temperature. Smooth the interior channel walls as smooth as you can get them with wet fingers. A smooth interior reduces turbulence and improves draft. Allow the structure to dry before your first fire. In warm, dry conditions, this might take 12 to 24 hours for the surface. For a full cure that prevents cracking from thermal shock, 48 hours or longer is better. When you fire it for the first time, start small. A modest fire for 20 minutes, then let it cool completely. Do this 2 or 3 times before you run it at full temperature. You're tempering the clay, the same process used to cure a new cast iron pan or a brick kiln. Thermal cycling gradually, while the material is still partially green, prevents the violent cracking that happens when fully wet clay hits full combustion temperature all at once. Now you're going to operate it, because technique matters as much as construction. Feed your fuel horizontally into the feed opening. The wood goes in from the side, not down from the top. Push it in until the tip of the fuel is just entering the combustion chamber at the base of the vertical chimney. This is the critical point. You want the burning end of your fuel to be right at the corner of the L, in the hottest part of the fire. As the wood burns, you push it further in. You are not building a big fire, you are feeding a continuous, controlled burn at a single precise point. This is the counterintuitive part of the rocket stove for people used to open fires. Less wood at a time, pushed forward continuously, produces more heat than a large pile burning chaotically. The stove is working correctly when the flame is drawn powerfully upward through the vertical channel, and you can actually hear, a low roar or hiss from the draft. That sound is the stove breathing. It means combustion temperatures are high enough that the gases are fully igniting, draft is strong, and thermal efficiency is near maximum. You should see almost no smoke from the chimney top. A little white vapor when you first start, especially in cold weather, then almost nothing once it's up to temperature. If you're seeing heavy smoke, the stove isn't hot enough yet. Give it a few minutes. Keep feeding small fuel, and the smoke will clear as combustion chamber temperature rises. Pot placement matters. The pot must sit close to the chimney opening, within ½ inch to 1 inch, to capture the maximum heat from the rising gases. Too high and the heat disperses before it reaches the pot. Too low and you choke the draft. Use your brick or stone pot supports to dial in the height. Use small diameter fuel. This is not a fire for logs. Sticks no thicker than your wrist are ideal. Smaller diameter fuel has more surface area relative to volume, ignites faster, burns more completely, and feeds more easily into the horizontal channel. Dead dry wood is better than green wood because it contains less moisture that has to be driven off before combustion can happen. Wet wood steals heat and produces smoke. If you only have green wood, split it and let it sit near the stove while it's running to pre-dry it before you feed it in. Let's put the efficiency in concrete terms, because the numbers are what make this design worth understanding. A standard open campfire cooking a pot of water converts roughly 10 to 15% of the fuel's thermal energy into heat that actually reaches the cooking vessel. An optimized rocket stove converts 40 to 50%. Some highly refined designs exceed that. This means you can cook the same meal on a rocket stove using roughly 1/4 of the wood you'd burn on an open fire. In a survival scenario where fuel collection takes time and energy you cannot waste, that multiplier is the difference between manageable and exhausting. The rocket stove was formalized as a design in the 1980s by Dr. Larry Winiarski at Aprovecho Research Center, whose work on efficient biomass combustion has since informed cooking technology in over 100 countries. The underlying principles, however, are older. Enclosed combustion chambers with vertical draft channels appear in historical stove designs across multiple cultures, going back centuries. What Winiarski did was apply engineering rigor to the geometry and document the physics in a way that allowed the design to be reproduced and taught systematically. The result is a design that is simultaneously ancient in principle and precise in execution, simple enough to build from rubble, efficient enough that engineers still study it. One more thing worth understanding before you go build one. The rocket stove produces nearly no smoke when operating at temperature. This matters for reasons beyond air quality. Smoke is visible, smoke travels, smoke announces that someone is cooking, which tells anyone watching that someone is present, that they have food, and that they have fire. In a scenario where discretion is a survival consideration, the difference between a smoking open fire and a nearly smokeless rocket stove is the difference between being invisible and being a signal flare. This is not a trivial point. It is the kind of operational detail that separates people who have thought carefully about survival from people who haven't. Build it now. A dry stacked brick version takes 45 minutes and 16 bricks. Test it in your backyard while conditions are calm and the stakes are low. Learn how the draft feels when the stove is running correctly. Learn how much wood per hour a good fire consumes. Learn how different pot sizes interact with the chimney geometry. Let your hands understand this before your hands have to do it under pressure. Because when the propane is gone and the open fire is burning through your fuel stockpile and the smoke is going everywhere, you'll want to already know how to build something better.